You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Before I start the interview, you're going to notice that my guest is mentioning some visual cues. And that's because Karen and her producer Phil used video on their end while I recorded just the audio on my side. So this is going to be a rare treat. After you listen to the interview, if you want to peek at Karen's graphics, you're going to be able to follow a link to her YouTube channel. So stay tuned to the very end of this episode for closing comments from yours truly. Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. And on this episode, the Mom Next Door meets Karen Wood, the brain lady. Well, actually, Karen, I met you in San Jose last year at the Vision Christian Writers Conference, and I heard about your book, Brain Prayers. And I was so intrigued by the title, I decided to come home and get it. I thought that might be a good addition to my bookshelf. And got me thinking, we think about praying for travels and graduations and new babies, maybe a broken leg or, anything in our life. But I don't think I had ever thought about praying for my brain or anybody else's brain.
Right.
That was an absolute new concept. Also kind of almost like a step or an opportunity, an invitation maybe to a new freedom. Like, wait, I can. I have never thought about that. I could pray for my brain. So that was just kind of a exciting thing, interesting discovery, and I'm sure I'm not alone. So I am just curious, how in the world did you come up with that concept, or how did you get started on the path for this connection and opportunity to pray for our brains?
So I'm glad you found the idea that praying for the brain is a curious idea, because curious is a great brain thing. It goes back to 2005. We have a beautiful 15-year-old son who made some poor choices, ended up in a 9-day trial, a year in juvenile hall. And I found a counselor for him when he got out who started teaching me about some of my brain parts, especially related to alert and reactivity for that heightened state my son was in. And then I got fired from my favorite social work job, helping foster kids, because I was too proactive for the foster kids, strangely enough.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that turned me to this therapist's office, and I started doing therapy. Never dreamed I'd do therapy. So I'm learning about the brain and praying for people in a session, and people started saying, "Can I have that prayer you just prayed?" And I went, I don't remember what I just prayed. So I got thinking about that. What a great idea to put in a book. Somebody needs to write that book. And then I went to Mount Hermon to not the writers' conference, but to a reflection conference. And they had a lady there who wrote a book called Praying in Color, where you doodle your prayers. And I opened that and I thought, that's what we need. Somebody needs to write a book in full color about the brain. So learn about the brain, and then here's how you pray for it. Boy, that would be a great book for somebody to write.
Yeah.
Well, about 2 weeks later, I'm driving down the road, beautiful oak-lined road. I know right where I was praying it, and kaboom, big, big voice in my head. Now, I don't know with these voices in my head if it's my impulsivity or my Holy Spirit. That's been a long journey for me to figure out what the difference is. But I saw the book. Left-hand side, bits of information about the brain, and here's how you pray for yourself. And the right page, here's how you pray for someone else's brain with a script, because people find praying awkward. And on the left-hand side, when you pray for yourself, make it fashioned after the Lord's Prayer, because brain is weird. So the whole page, I just went home, I Googled some images, there was the images. I started putting it together, had a draft book, and then my computer was stolen. So good exhales, I went and rented a cabin and rewrote the book, so excited about it. And then a month later, I fell and broke my back. So now I'm on my back, literally, computer in the air, finishing the
Uh,
book to be able to say, hey, I invite you to learn how to pray for your brain. So that's the story of how that happened. Not my idea to be the writer, but it has been so much fun to see people grabbing the idea that it's distinctive and yet truly life changing. Because when we start praying for someone else, for their amygdalas, their hippocampus, their frontal lobes, all these brain parts, our amygdala scanner starts scanning for that person more through the day. And I think that allows us to join the Holy Spirit more during the whole day. So for video listeners, I'm holding up my fingers so you can see my pinkies. It's as if the nail beds are my amygdala behind my eyes and ears, scanning to be more aware of that person all day long. So it really not only just changed how I pray specifically, but how I join the Holy Spirit in being more aware of that person. And then it gets to be what I call psycho weird, which is you'll just be walking around praying for somebody, and then you're praying for their breathing, you're praying for their amygdalas, you're praying for their hippocampus, it just out of the blue. And then they say later, how did you know you needed to pray for me right at that period of time? So it starts just expanding prayer life in general when we get that specific.
So, did you grow up like immersed in prayer in your church or in your home or circles that like did you have to retrain yourself to pray differently?
Well, I'm an interesting bird in a lot of ways. I grew up in the Christian Reformed Church, which is very heavy Calvinistic. You do not move an arm. You sing the same hymn. You pray their prayers. And then when I started going to an Assemblies of God church when I was about 17, these people were clapping and inviting everybody to pray out loud. So that's when in high school, my prayer life really expanded to be an active Pentecostal version of paying more attention to what the Holy Spirit's doing in your whole day.
More
So yeah, pretty much
participatory.
prayer roots from early.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so tell me a little bit more about how does our faith connect to our brain? I don't, on the idea of praying throughout the day and having reminders set before us, I'm totally into that. I actually used to have a set of bracelets, and I wore a bracelet with each one of my children's names on it every day because
Lovely.
I needed to force myself into the habit of I need something in front of me. I wonder if that was a little bit of brain science that I accidentally fell into.
It was. It was because we have so many visual connectors with our brains. From the front of us, where we take in the information, to the back of us, our occipital lobe. Like if you put your hand on the back of your head, that's your occipital lobe where you process all those pictures. So you were seeing something that connected to memory centers and said, hey, this is why I'm wearing this. So that was a lot of your neurology firing there.
Wow. Okay. So I did say that in the past tense that I used to wear these bracelets, and I did for like 4.5 years. I wore, and then I thought, oh, I've got this regular habit of praying for my children. I'm not a jewelry person, and so I just kind of let them
Ah,
go. I thought I've got this habit, and I find myself every now and then I was like, oh my goodness, now I got to find them. Where are they in the drawer? I have fallen out of the habit. So what you're saying, that makes sense. That it makes sense as much as I understand the big brain words you're using. It
and
reminds
and
me, yes, there's a reason.
habits are all neurology. So holding my hand up like a tree, that's all the neurons firing in my heads, millions and millions connecting to other millions and millions of neurons. And as we use those, they get strengthened. And as we don't use them, then my tree withers and those neurons don't fire that way. So habits need to be practiced for those neurons to know. That's why I think with this idea of us constantly going to the Bible is so important because, yeah, I have been a Bible reading Christian since I'm 4, but I see that verse and I go, I don't remember that verse. Have I ever read this verse before? because I haven't read it in 20 years, so it's not in the neurology structure of my brain. Now, certain verses that I memorize and keep saying, and as a therapist, use them in my sessions, like um, if you're feeling overwhelmed, close to tears, lift up your eyes and blink them. Brides know it, trying not to cry at a wedding, but in our day to day life, if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we lift up our eyes and blink, then I share Psalm 121:1 with someone. And these words come quickly to me because I practice them often. I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help comes from? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. I can quote you the whole chapter because that's one that my habit of neurons uses a lot. That's why people can remember Psalm 23 because it might be the only Bible verse they ever re-practice the habit of. So to have the visuals is really helpful because it reminds those neurons, hey, I want to keep you around. It's
Okay.
also why when we have bad habits, um, and we use them frequently, like me and my language, because after my son got out of juvenile hall, he shared a whole bunch of language with our household that still kind of lingers sometimes. And so I don't like that about me. But when I get really frustrated and I use that word again, I have just reinforced that neuron. So it's going to take longer for me. But conversely, that's why gratitude is so important because that's all a
Mm,
frontal lobe, hand on top of your head, above your eyes. And I'm reminding all those neurons, hey, I want you to keep firing because this is good, this is good, this is good. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that to keep those neurons going. And sometimes when we're working with people and we say, hey, can you think of three things you're grateful for? They can't really come up with anything because they're not used to the habit of scanning
yeah.
for gratitude. So
Yeah.
there was a lot more information about habit than you maybe wanted.
Well, and I
You get me
think
talking about
that,
anything brain, I will just take off.
yeah. And I think that we probably most people are like me, where we're not thinking about our brain, but we are
Right.
setting down the rails, laying down the rails. Like a train car is going to go down the rails, and we don't realize that we have laid those down, and then might need a redirect from time to time. So, yeah, that I don't. Again, I kind of struggle with all the big word brain language, and I want to go get your book out, and I have have your book, but I'm like, I need you to say that again.
There it
Well,
is.
I'm
Yay.
looking at the picture and I'm trying to figure out exactly wait a minute, go say that again. So I think probably more people
So
are
open it up and
um
find a brain.
yeah, yeah. Okay, what
So if you
page?
open it up, just and tell me what brain, where find a brain page.
Okay. Well, let's see. What a brain page like this is a good one. This is a good one.
Okay, what you find?
Is that right?
And so what's in the top of it? Yep.
The
So there's a brain
top
map. It
says
shows
it's
all
all
the different
backwards.
regions of your
Okay.
brain on the outside. Okay, that
Okay.
doesn't matter. We'll get it right. Um, so that was a brain map of the outside of your brain, and that shows you in the book what we're working on. Because to know about what's on the outside of the brain is really important, because it's the inside of our brain that kind of leads us astray a lot. So on the outside of the brain, you have that frontal lobe where your head goes. That's where your best decision and planning is. So good to know. I want a lot of my thinking to go there. So for your video learners, we just put this on the screen. And on the top is my parietal lobe, which is wonderful because that's where all the body things happen. Scientists actually have it mapped out on your parietal lobe by the inch. This one does my tongues, this one does my lips, each little brain part. Have you ever seen the brain surgeries? Maybe you don't watch brain surgeries like I do, but where they have to have someone has to stay awake because they need to know if they're still conscious or not, that they're
Yeah.
touching different parts of that
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
And in the back is a really important part, the occipital lobe, where we do our viewing. So that brain map just tells you in the book which one of those outside things, because when we get upset, we go to the inside, which is on the other page in your book.
Okay.
And it's the inside parts we want to learn about because they're our reactivity. And in a lot of people call it the reptile brain, the middle. I don't like that word at all because I think it was specifically designed from the go to protect us from the things. Like, what do we do if we hear and see a rattlesnake, right? So what we're trying to do is say, I want to know what my inside part. So on your book, the amygdala, the first brain part, is right behind your eyes and right behind your ears, and it is the one that does alert in the brain. So on the screen for the video watchers, it's right in the middle of the brain. And so what we're after is saying that amygdala, Greek for the word almond, remembers how upset I was the last time. So in your interesting life with 9 children, I have two, so I just thickly swallow when I think about people having 9 children. You have two. Which is the one that by habit you can get the most frustrated with quickly? Which one of your babies?
Oh, I can't tell
The
you
biggest
that.
mess maker or
We'll just have
oh,
to keep it a secret. I
inappropriate
have them in my
question. I
mind.
should have known that. You have them, they have the critter in your mind. What
Yeah.
number, scale of 0 to 10, do you automatically go to in that frustration?
Oh,
Is it like two or mild? Are you an amazing person and never get frustrated? Or are you
oh
like
no.
me, a little more reactive and that number a little higher?
Yeah, I'm definitely I can react a bit higher. It depending on
Feel a
you
different.
know, we've had this conversation. You might bring light to this. My husband and I have said, I said, I'm fine when I tell you once. I'm fine when I tell you two or three or four times. But when
Right.
I come in and I've told you for weeks on
They'll
end
hear
the
your
same
voice.
thing
Yes.
over and over,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
that level,
There's
like you're
the voice.
mentioning,
Yes,
that
yes.
level, we're at number nine to start. Like, oh yeah,
I love that. That makes me feel so much better. So we call that the set point of reactivity. It's your amygdala. And on the screen here for us is the boxes that my clients are used to using. We automatically go to a certain number by habit. We need it to. We need you to remember the 9 of danger if you see or hear a rattlesnake. Remember that amygdala is behind your eyes and your ears. So the rattlesnake, you need to remember 9. Get out of here, right? But what happens is when we live our life all the time, the small things become rattlesnakes. But the helpful part of that page and the prayers is then I can feel on the screen, number one, notice the tension. I can feel I'm at a 9 about this because you're right. You have said it 12 times already. You're very right. And right next to that amygdala is your hippocampus that is remembering for you. You said it at least 9 times. And so, but if you and I can feel the 9, my 9s are all eyebrows. I am eyebrows up and pointing. That's my 9. I know it.
mm-hmm.
That's my marital spot, I call it, my 9. But if I can take a deep breath and do my body first, take that deep breath, bring my voice down, bring my fingers down, talk to my eyebrows, then my everything is going to go back to my frontal lobe so I can view how to handle this with the most wisdom instead of like I've handled it how many times before. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's dynamically exciting because if we can know, we can heal that reaction. That's a trick with children, though, because if you don't raise your voice and you don't point, they don't know how really, really serious you are. And they think maybe they can, they're smart. Maybe they can do
Yeah,
it 3 or 4 times, right? But then we have to retrain everybody how to react to my not high voice and my not pointing and to be able
right.
to say, in my best state of mind, I'm going to mention this again. We're going to talk a lot about using the brain and the body. You have the first version of the book. In the second version is a lot of the same material. It's not as much material because people said the first one was too much material.
Okay.
So I reduced it and made it a second book. It's more of a watercolory stained glass look, so it's lighter, but it
Okay.
has the same basic amygdala brain information in it with more of the body stuff. I call it body stuff. Bad word, but
Okay.
it's just how can we learn what our bodies are doing when we get frustrated? And how can we learn how to use our bodies, top of our brain, to tell that inside of our brain, I'm really not in danger. This is not a rattlesnake. It's just really irritating. And then get that exhale going again. Because just in the last 5 years, society in general has been talking more about breathing than they were when I first wrote the book. Because when I first wrote the book 10 years ago, there was not brain stuff out there. Yay. Now we're
Mm.
getting more brain stuff out, a lot more body stuff.
Hmm.
And it's about being balanced between this brain and body.
Yeah.
And how can we recognize it? And then what can we do about it?
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is training our bodies is in collaboration with taking every thought captive. Like
Yes.
we need our bodies to
It
support our
is.
brain in taking our thoughts captive.
And be anxious in nothing, but in all things, thanksgiving. And what does it do? It gives us a sounder heart and mind. So the heart, there's that body pumping away
Yeah.
and the mind. And
Yeah.
then the next verse says how we should think, whatever is true, lovely, good, a good report. So the brain body connections are all in the Bible. I'm really looking
Yeah.
forward to writing the brain prayers or the Bible. In other words, with different verses, what's happening in our body. Why does it stay, be still and know I'm God? And what's happening in our bodies? And then how can we use our bodies to get to the be still part quicker? So I'm really looking forward to writing that book. I think it will help people understand a lot of scripture more.
Yeah.
So,
That's a
yea,
that's
though
a
I
good
walk through the valley
perspective.
of death. Yeah. It allows us to say, blast, I'm human, but I would like to get this divine perspective going a little quicker.
Yeah. Now, okay, my experience in motherhood has been there's seasons where I feel like my brain is literally too full. Like I have so much going on in my brain. It is just full and my brain is tired. Tell me, is there
Yes.
validity in that?
Well, we've got a lot of things going on there. With the precious female body, we have monthly things happening that we may or may not be aware of based on our age. And in the female body, when it goes through its cycles, it's all brain inflammation. And if we're actually menstruating, sorry, Phil, my producer's sitting here, but this is a female show largely. In our cycle time, the brain is a hot, inflamed mess. From 5 to 3 days before we start our cycle, and then starting 2 weeks later again. So, yeah, so it means all through the month, we have less brain power than we probably should. I think a lot of cultures have it right when they say to the woman, you just go over there for a few days. Take care of you for all by yourself for 5 days. That's what the Indians used to do. But we just require ourselves to keep going. So you have the monthly cycle. Really important to know in our teenagers. When we say, oh, it's hormonal, oh, it's such a brain thing. And if we could realize that, we have so much more compassion. So there's the
Yeah.
monthly thing. Then we have the mom thing of having to keep track of so many things, which is exhausting.
Yeah.
I've got
That's
a mom going
interesting.
through a divorce she did not want. Yeah, she's got 5 kids, divorce she does not want. Uh, Cocaine is creating a lot of problems for her in his life. So she's supposed to get her 5 children to counseling. And she and I just sit and laugh hysterically because how is she supposed to do 5 kids in sports and their school and get them to 5 counseling sessions a week? The judge obviously didn't have multiple children. So you can see the exhaustion and the brain fog she'd encounter just trying to get kids to sports and counseling, let alone all the other things. So the things moms have to keep track of can keep that brain fog going. And then we have seasons of grief thrown in there because grief is not tidy. If we lose someone, we say in the grief world, the trauma world, it's going to take 2 years before you get your brain back. So if you're trying to run a household and you've had a big loss, 2 years is a long time to be in a brain fog.
Yeah.
I remember we lost my brother about 5, 7 years ago, and mom seemed to be doing so much better. It was her eldest, and I remember about 2 years and 3 months, we were having breakfast and she just sat up straight and she looked at my sister and I and she started laughing again. We hadn't heard that in a long time. She said, I think I'm back. Something had just
Wow.
clicked in her brain that cleared that fog away.
Uh-huh.
So you can see how complicated it is. If I've got my female cycle, I'm too busy as a mom. I've gone through grief things. And then we have the marriage cycles. That's a lot for that female brain to keep track of, to keep functioning.
Yeah.
And then if we get into depression waves at all,
Yeah. Add that in. Cumulatively, it makes a full brain, doesn't it?
It makes a full brain. But when someone comes to my therapy office, if the things I do don't just kind of land within 2 or 3 sessions, the first thing I say is, hey, I think it's time for you to go get a complete physical. There may be chemicals worn out in you that are not allowing you to have your whole brain to think or are allowing you to be full tired. Or the new thing, exciting thing now is, way too many people are on psych meds. And that's not, I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying don't take depression medicines. That's not what I'm saying. It's just often they're the wrong ones for our brain type. So now they're starting to do DNA tests that can tell you which medicines are best for your brain and which are no good for your brain. So, for us to join the medical science a little bit more, to say, hey, I am just so worn out and having trouble thinking. Is your iron low? Is your magnesium sulfate low? Vitamin B? Vit- What's your serotonin doing? Do you need something to help that serotonin booster in your brain? So, we live in a way, way, way too busy time. These cell phones create a lot of our problems in our life right now, especially parenting teenagers. And so, but if we can say, hey, I'm worn out, tired, feel foggy all the time, it might be a good medical check, might put your finger on something that might be easily fixed as far as helping you with that extended exhaustion.
Now, that is an interesting concept. And I'll have to tell you, in all my years of parenting, whenever I would go to my doctor and I'd tell them, I'm so tired, I just feel like I should have more energy. The only response I received was, you're only one woman. Of course you're going to be tired. And so that was almost dismissive, right? Like, well,
Well,
suck it
we have
up,
been
buttercup.
dismissive to women in medicine. Yeah. Yeah. And people go to emergency rooms with panic attacks now and they're just dismissed. And it's just,
Yeah.
women have more heart attacks than men, but they aren't cared. So, yeah, you got the bad answer. I got the
Yeah.
really bad answer in 1997. Went away with my husband, needed to get away. I had 2 little boys, and he changed the plans, which now I know is social anxiety. I didn't know that then. And I laid in the hospital, no, not the hospital bed, the hotel bed, and just was, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. We weren't saying panic attack in 1997, but that's what I was having. I went to my favorite doctor who had helped me with some other things. He said, oh, too many things in your life out of control. Here's Paxil. Didn't explain to me what that meant. Didn't explain to me, go get somebody to talk to about all these things that are too overwhelming. And so I took it, went to China for a beautiful trip and just wasn't myself. I came home and took myself out of it, off of it. That was dumb. And just didn't get help, right? So we are now getting smarter at saying, hey, there's medical help, there's talk to someone help. But what I love about the brain is then we can say, people of high trauma, wretched backgrounds, hey, what you're feeling and what you're doing makes perfect sense for where you've come from. You make perfect sense. So let's figure that out and go from there. It's like that last podcast you did with the lady who wrote the book on Jesus and the Messy House. That was a
Yes.
good one. And
Dana
she
White.
said,
Uh-huh.
you told Dana White, she said, she was talking and you jumped in how someone came into your house when you were a young mom, well intentioned, and said, you shouldn't have a messy house. That reflects Christ in your house. And you sent you for a tailspin. And then you figured out, wait, no, that's not the way it goes. I've got a lot of kids, and this is what I'm able to keep my house at. We do the very same thing to people from high trauma. We say, your life is messy. It shouldn't be this messy. And if you had Christ in your life truly, you wouldn't be exhibiting these behaviors. When really, if we as the community of Christ can come around them and saying, you make perfect sense where you come from. Yes, you're messy right now. Even to the point, I just did 2 podcasts with a lady in our area who works with human trafficking. Even if we say to someone who's in prostitution, yes, your life is messy, not your best choices, but Jesus still loves you and let's figure out how to get you help. Or a mom who's exhausted. Yes, you have a lot of kids, but let's figure out what else might be going on. Or marriage is in trouble because it's so hard to stay married now with all the everythings. How can we come along that and support that? And to me, it's a brain body balance thing. How can we invite people to learn more about their brains? That's the book. And how do you
Mm-hmm.
use your body in that tired moment? That's why I end every podcast with sit up straight and exhale, which is real funny. I don't know who watches the podcast often, right? So I'll walk through church. I don't even know this person, and they say, I'm standing up straight and I'm exhaling. And I don't even know who they are. But they're catching that end line, which is
Yeah.
let's use our body more, even in that exhaustion and the tired, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so if there's a mom who's like, okay, I'm recognizing some things. I feel like maybe I've been given some poor counsel in the past, that isn't helping me
Hmm.
find a solution. What is my next step? Where do I go? I know we're going to look at, I will put in the show notes listing of your book and your podcast and your website. Are there any other, like, here's some DIY until you can get to the next step, start on these things?
A real quick one is, Phil, if you can get those 4 steps back on the screen, is this thing we call outcome based thinking. If I can notice the tension in the moment, can't get
Uh-huh.
to the doctor, can't find my therapist yet, but if I can notice right now I'm feeling overwhelmed and it's my breathing.
Hmm.
Step number 2, what's the outcome of the picture? See, now we're pulling in the pictures because it's so much faster than words. What would I look like if I don't get some help? Not a hard picture because I'm already there. I'm crashing.
Yeah.
Step
Yeah.
number 3, out thinking. What's the outcome of the picture with acceptance? Doesn't mean it's good, right, lovely, or true, but I have a name I can call, or somebody's going to take me and go with me, or it's next Wednesday. I just got to get to next Wednesday. Whatever the thing is, I can tell my brain. And another fun one we use is a pretend picture. What would the outcome of the picture be if I could do this? So here I'm feeling overwhelmed. But if we say to my mind, what would I look like if I could do this? Then the mind looks around, runs up to that frontal lobe and says, well, I'll do these 3 things differently today. And then all of a sudden they get some more energy until I get to somebody else. So that's the first one is use your pictures to imagine what you could look like if. And you should feel a change in your body. Number 4, change attention. You might feel a real gaspy inhale. Well, that's really good. That's your brain letting go of a bunch of stuff because most people don't breathe right. And that's the second one. So, first, make your
Mm-hmm.
pictures. The second, quicker one is use that body to be more aware of your exhaling. Full inhales, full exhales. And the tag to that quick one is try to get to a Pilates or a yoga class. Now, the Christian world goes, woo, when we think yoga, but it really is, when it's done well, a beautiful thing. There are Christian yogas where we just sit and meditate on Bible verses while we're taking the time to breathe and stretch out. It just helps a lot of tissues clear out. An excellent book is The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which really just explained how all of our tissues hold our trauma. So, second quick tip is to work on your body, get out for that walk, stand in the sun, do your stretches, because you're using the outside of your body to tell that inside brain, that amygdala, wait, I've got a plan to get some help. So, quick
Mm-hmm.
tip number 1 is that 10 picture, what would you look like if you could do this? And the second
Yeah.
tip is take care of your body and try to get to some kind of exercise class where you can do it for more than 7 minutes, right? It takes 15 minutes for my ADHD brain to stop doing the lists when I'm in a yoga class. When are we going to be done? I got to, let's go, chop, chop. It takes me about
Yeah.
15 minutes for that calm down. And then I get down to the business of just listening to my body.
Yeah.
So the third quick tip would be music.
Mm.
When we put on our worship music and we sing with it, we are extending the time that we exhale. And then we're doing that vertical focus to get that strength beyond us. But when we sing or hum, especially hum, it changes how our heart beats. So if we're feeling overwhelmed and completely frantic and out of, ooh, just get humming, it'll get that breathing shifted. It changes the heart rate and that gets a different flow of the brain. Doing any of these, you may notice you start to yawn a lot, which culturally we've been told is rude, when actually it's one of the brain's beautiful gifts to say, "Ooh, thank you for that good new air. Could you give me
Huh.
some more of it?" Because we don't breathe enough. So the next tip would be drinking water. We've got a wonderful nerve in our
Uh-huh.
throat called our glossopharyngeal nerve. I'm writing the
Okay.
brain prayers for kids, so that's on the G page. Because if you can say
Okay.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can say glossopharyngeal nerve. It actually helps with the swallowing, yes, but I call it the miracle nerve because it helps us in this on our screen as a nervous system. It helps us tell all of our organs we're going to be okay. So here you're stuck at home, you haven't made your appointments yet, you can't get to the yoga class yet, but if you stand and have a drink of water and feel the shift in your breathing as you're picturing all your organs, you will notice that the frantic slows down. You'll notice it might be easier to take a plan. So you can imagine if you're making the pictures, stretching your shoulders a little bit, working on your breathing, and you're singing and getting a glass of water, in that 5 minutes, you're telling your amygdala, please tone the rattlesnake down because I have a plan. I'm not in critical danger. Because otherwise, we stay in this concept called an amygdalic hijack. Remember, you mentioned you're 9? If we don't do things, our amygdala is going to slam us up against that 8, 9, 10 all the time. And then we have no access to that frontal lobe. I call it going stupid. So, but if we can know that makes perfect sense that we are going stupid, or especially to know that our children are, or husbands. My husband's had a whole series of strokes now. And he'll
Mhm.
say things to me and my game is on. Here comes my fight forward. And I just have to remember, no, right now his brain is hijacked.
Mhm.
He doesn't have a full brain anymore. But I am the one that does the overreacting because it just doesn't make sense to me that the things he does. And I think we're in a normal conversation. We are not in a normal conversation.
Yeah.
So this idea of being hijacked is big. So if you're overwhelmed and you can't grab your thinking, just to know
Mhm.
these 5 things that I mentioned will help come out of that hijack.
Taking the time to step through those 5 things, I'm imagining that is just slows things down. So you're not racing and you're not feeling that anxiety of
Mhm.
speed is one. And I
Yes.
recognized out of that list you gave me, one thing that I actually always skipped over was the
Oh,
music. And
mm,
I know everybody said, "Oh, I always play worship music in my house and we sing." And for me, I thought I have so much noise in my house, there's no way I'm adding one more thing to it. And I need to have no extra noise in the house because if somebody starts crying in the next room, I have to respond. And so I was very purposeful to not play any music or have any of that going. But I'm hearing this that actually would have been a good step in my house and a good way to keep that centeredness. So I think that's good. I want to apply that, and I also want to um, I guess maybe caution the younger mom if you have the mindset that I had, like, I don't need any more noise. Wow, Karen's actually suggesting it would have been beneficial for me.
well, there's different ways you can do it. You can have the radio on in the whole room, or now I could have my phone on just by me. So I could hear it
Yeah,
and be singing and humming just by me and not in the bigger space. Because I'm a
yeah,
real noise girl. My family still teases me when I get together with all my siblings. They'll start banging on the counter and they'll start chewing loudly and they'll start putting their forks together because I've always been diminish the noise. I can't go to big concerts.
yeah.
There's just too much noise. So to figure out how to make the music work for you,
Hmm.
and then just be aware of that humming. If I can't handle
Yeah,
the audio of so much, if I can and there's wonderful sciences about the cadence that starts with those like amazing grace when we just start singing those words, what happens to our
okay.
whole
Yeah,
systems. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
yes, the music is a marvelous one. So
Okay.
if you join several of those together, even if you're still overwhelmed, it'll tell your brain tissue that you're not in danger. There's still a
Okay.
lot to work through. And that's where we talk about putting things in boxes. If we can just say, here's the 5 things I'm overwhelmed about, even just writing them down, it's a different than a list. Because in a list, we think we got to do all those things. Whereas if we just have to put things in boxes, then we can separate them.
Hmm.
Another really handy thing to do is when you have a box, what number is that for you? So these are things you're afraid of, fearful of, unresolved. What number is that for you? They may all seem like a 9, but when you start writing them down in boxes with numbers, all of a sudden getting to the grocery store is really only a 4. Wrapping those 6 presents, that's a little higher number. Oh, this kid's room's only a 1. Oh, getting to the hospital to visit so and so, I'm really worried. That's a bigger number, right? But all of a sudden, I realized I've got a lot of low numbers. There's just too many things, but they're low numbers. Then you can take a deep breath. I'll get to them. And then I'm telling my amygdala, that reactive brain, it's right behind my eyes and right behind my ears, hey, I've got this. I can do this. Right. And I
Yeah.
just cracked up this morning that I had listened to your podcast on Jesus and the Messy House because I had so much going this week and my kitchen is a disaster, which it usually isn't. But my husband went shopping yesterday. He's discovered Costco, which is not a good thing. So we're going away for 2 days, and he bought enough for 2 weeks. So I'm pulling out what he's bought. It's sitting there. We had a leak under the sink. All that stuff's pulled out. I'm doing my taxes on the table. I mean, it looks like a storm in my house. And the dog sitter's coming, of course, in my house.
Yeah.
And I just laughed and said, well, that's the way it is right now. Send her a text. Here's the mess. But
Yeah.
I was using my breathing as I left the house to say, you've been just jammed this week, all for good reasons. Here's the block of time you'll get it cleaned up. These people don't
Yep.
care. They've got 8 children
Yeah.
themselves. They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was the breathing that I used to tell my overwhelmed self when I get
Yeah.
back, then I put it in the box. This is the sequence of which I'll take care of it when I get back.
Yeah.
So we call it brain body box balance because it just tells us how to partner up with our brain and body better with
Okay.
that brain curiosity in all of it.
Well, I know that we have just scratched the surface, and there's a lot more that you have to offer to listeners, both on your podcast, on your website, and all the places. So I want to ask if you will share with me all those places, and then I'm going to ask you to close us out in a word of prayer.
Ooh, I love that part. So the podcast is called the Brain Lady Podcast. It's audio and YouTube, so you can just hear it on the way to work, or you can watch it video in YouTube. Um, and in that podcast, we talk about every single session, these practical balancing things you can do. It's called Notes from the Couch because I started off with something that somebody said in a therapy session, what we did in the therapy session, and then how you can apply all those things to you. So that's the podcast. And then Instagram, it's karen.d.wood. That's the Instagram post where I try to do these practical things more often.
Right.
Facebook is Karen Wood. And then there's Brain Lady is also on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, there's a lot of ways. And then the website, Karen D. Wood. And uh, yeah, more books coming. Look forward to continuing to invite people to be curious about their brains.
And I think that just looking at the copy of the book that I have, it actually would be a great curiosity and introductory concept with my kids. I think that there's enough to look at, and they love diagrams and colors and just a familiarity. Because here I am, 53 years old, and I'm like, this is terminology I've never really sunk my teeth into, and I've never really considered it. And so it's all new to me at my age. But if I could offer this to my children, my teenagers, and let them know, especially my teenage daughters, people go, oh, well, it's just hormones. And we think dismissive again, right? Where you're putting
Yes.
some physiology in here and you're saying, there's actually a reason, and this is absolutely normal. It's the way God designed you and it's with a purpose. So I just see even the book that you've written as a resource in just everyday life in learning to manage that knowledge and just in a real hopeful way. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're developing the website to have questions for homeschoolers or book clubs for just doing exactly what you're talking about, to have it be more of an educational resource. So it's exciting of what we keep learning about the brain and body.
Fantastic. Well, as we close out, would you just please show us in your example, like how pray for our brains, pray for my
Yes.
brain. I would love that
Yes.
today.
So this is what a brain prayer sounds like. So Lord, we thank you for all these ladies who listened today, who carry such big burdens and in the way we do society can be so quickly overwhelmed. So I pray, Lord, for their frontal lobes, that you would bless the connection from the middle of their brain to the top of their brain, that their best planner and viewer and gratitude systems can work. And right next door to that, Lord, on the top, I pray for the parietal lobes where we do this amazing body of ours. So please help us learn how to use the stretching and the breathing and the drinking of water and the singing, all of those things that tell the inside of our brain. Our amygdala is right behind our eyes and ears that do the alert and send us to the top of that scale instantly with all the fight and fright and flight and freeze and fawn. Those are all from the past, Lord, and we just ask that for those of us who have been through so many things, that system is swollen. So we ask for you to be the reducer of the alerts so that next door, the memory system of the hippocampus, those memories can actually heal in how reactive they are for us. And so we just thank you, Lord, for all of these brain parts sitting on this beautiful brain stem, on this spinal cord that helps us stand so straight. We thank you that we have you as the healer of the very cells in our body and our brains. And we thank you that we are so marvelously and wonderfully made. Amen.
Amen. What a beautiful prayer.
It is lovely to pray brain.
I think we're going to have to get used to that. That's a great thing to do. So, thank you for being here with us this week. Ladies, if you haven't stopped by for a while, make sure you find me at tendingfields.net and on Instagram at tendingfields. I'd also say hi to you on Facebook. It's interesting, God's timing. When I recorded this episode with Karen, I was going strong with the podcast. I knew that I'd be slowing down a little bit over the summer, but I didn't really intend on just stopping. Well, I think it would be safe to say there's been a struggle. It just appears that I have too much on my plate, spinning too many plates in the air, however you want to say it. I've got a lot going on. You might have heard me mention on my last episode that I was stepping away from podcasting and I did not know the future. Well, I'm still kind of there. It's very apparent that there's got to be some changes. And it's interesting as I went back and edited this episode, listening to the brain and the stress and the trauma and, all these things. What I heard speaking to me was that that's where I am. I need to rest, spend some more time outside, taking walks, sitting down with my counselor, slowing down my breathing, slowing down the production. I've just been moving too fast and with too many things. And when I get into that position, it's, that fight, flight, freeze. Well, I'm kind of in that freeze position right now. I've got a new grandbaby coming in August and another one in October. And I need to settle in for a while, ponder what God's direction is for me, turn on some worship music, and train my amygdala. As I mentioned last week, this pause that I'm talking about, I've got one more episode that is pre-recorded, and I'm going to make sure I get that out to you pretty soon. I'm not exactly sure what else I will be coming down the pike for the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. Like I said, it may just be a time for the Lord to allow me to rest, restore my heart, work on some relationships within my family. But I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, because then you would know when I come back. If I come back, these episodes will start showing up in your downloads again. So, anyway, so that's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for staying with me. God bless you. Bye bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is noble, think on these things